Hello, everybody. I'd like to call to order the regular council meeting for Tuesday, July 8th, 2025. This meeting is being recorded live and is streaming on the District of Summerland YouTube channel. All representations to council, written or verbal, will form part of the public record and be available to the public for viewing electronically or as a written record. Corporate officer, do we have any late items? No late items. If I can approve the agenda, please. Councillor Betts, Councillor Peak, all in favor? That carries. Consent agenda. Would anybody like to remove anything from the consent agenda? Councillor Trainer?
I will remove item B, which is a letter from the Okanagan Regional Libraries.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Councillor Betts?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would remove items A and D.
Okay. Anyone else?
Those are the two I would go to suggest as well.
Okay, and I would like to remove the procurement report 4.5. So those will go down to 11, item 11. If I get approval of the consent agenda as amended, Councillor Betts, Councillor Van Elfen, all in favor? That carries. And now we move straight into my report. Just a short one today. On July 1st, I participated in the annual Canada Day flag raising ceremony and celebration at Memorial Park with Deputy Mayor Trainer and Councillors Peak, Van Elfen, and Barkwell. Like every year, the community turned out in large numbers to this happy event, which was once again organized by the Summerland Legion with support from Destination Summerland and a $500 grant and aid from the district. It is, of course, the volunteers who make the event a success. My job as mayor is to cut and serve pieces of the Canada Day cake. And thank you to Councillor Van Elfen for assisting me this year with that important task. 2 years ago, there was one cake that ran out very quickly. Last year we had a second cake, but we still ran out. And so this year we had 3 cakes, and that seemed to be just about right. Also on July 1st, Destination Summerland's new temporary visitor center opened to the public, and I and other councillors stopped by after the Canada Day celebrations. The new office at the district-owned house at 13230 Henry Avenue, just behind the fire hall, replaces the former tourist information center on Highway 97. It's intended to serve as a stopgap until Destination Summerland is able to move into new permanent quarters. On July 3rd, Councillor Barkwell and I attended the regular board meeting of the Regional District of Okanagan-Similkameen, where the board approved the waiving of development cost charges and other fees totaling $307,000 for a 36-unit affordable housing project in Okanagan Falls. The RDOS is also launching a pop-up office initiative to improve community engagement and access to regional services. Logistics are currently being coordinated with the municipalities, and I suggested that for Summerland, it might be useful if the RDOS could participate in the district's annual budget open house in the new year. That's my report. CEO?
Thank you, Your Worship. We have been having some issues with vandalism in the Rotary Beach area, and specifically the washrooms there. Most recently, the men's washroom was vandalized again, and as a result, the facility had to be closed for an extended period of time for the police to gather evidence and for the site to be cleaned up. A porta potty was put on site in the meantime. I understand even maybe this weekend we saw more vandalism, this time at the band shell. So in both cases and in all cases, if residents see vandalism happening in the community, or you believe you have information in relation to the specific case, please contact the RCMP directly at 250-494-7416. The Wharton Street Critical Infrastructure Project is proceeding well, and things are on track. The next phase of the project will be to start the safety improvements work on the Main Street and Victoria Road intersection. We will be inviting business owners in that area to an information session next week, and more information can be found on the overall project and its next steps at https://whartonstreet.ca. Finally, we are asking residents to voluntarily reduce their water consumption where possible. We're currently in level 2 drought status, and so we are suggesting that the residential sprinklers and residential underground irrigation only be used twice a week between midnight and 6 a.m. based on your address, again on that volunteer basis. And at this time, we are not moving to mandatory water restrictions, but that's still a possibility in the near future, depending on what happens with water levels and drought. And in any case, we'll use Facebook and the website to communicate the information and any changes, as well, possibly the Voyant Alert Service. And with that, I conclude my report.
Okay, thank you. Council, any questions? Councillor Trainer?
CAO, I just have a couple of questions about vandalism. I did ask our Director of Community Services if we could get a total for what we've spent on vandalism to date for this year. And then also, if people do see something happening, do they call non-emergency or do they call 911? And if they call non-emergency, where does that call get directed?
Yes, if something's happening like in that exact moment, just call 911. Yeah, but if it's something that they have information relating to, please do call the number that I gave. Might be somebody heard something or is aware of a rumor, or somebody might have been involved, the RCMP are conducting investigations. So, but anytime someone sees something happening in that moment, feel free to call 911.
Okay, that is feedback I have heard from the community, is that they have seen things and they don't know, they don't want to call 911, but then they're worried that if they call the non-emergency, nothing's going to get done until the next day or something. So, okay, thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Betts?
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. So just following up on this vandalism, of course, our community suffered a number of vandalism incidents at our recreation sites last year as well, which is just tremendously disappointing. Can you speak to a little bit if we can employ any kind of video surveillance at our district-owned locations, just so our community understands what we're able and what we're not able to do?
Yeah, through the mayor, great question. Thank you. We do have significant limitations for use of recording video because of privacy legislation. It's not impossible to do that in very specific circumstances, but it's an onerous administrative process that we would have to go to. And it really is to ensure that any stored information of a visual nature is only accessed by certain people for certain purposes. In some cases, what we have done in certain locations, which should remain undisclosed rather, the RCMP do have the ability to conduct their own monitoring and sometimes use cameras, but they have powers to do that, whereas the district for our own operations doesn't have those same sort of powers for criminal investigations. So we have very limited ability to have cameras, and do rely on the community and eyes and ears and these sorts of things to let us know when something's happening.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on then to our delegations. And we have the Okanagan Regional Library today. Danielle, Caroline, do you need 2 chairs there? Just pull up another one. And then just push the button there. So there you go.
Does that work? Can
Yeah.
you hear me?
It's all yours.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much, Mayor and Council, for making time for us in your agenda. I understand you've been meeting this morning already, so this is sounding like a long day for all of you. So we're going to be here for about 10 minutes. I'm going to talk about some system-wide initiatives and services that the Okanagan Regional Library provides that are increasing in busyness. And so I think they really illustrate the value that public libraries bring to that our public library brings to your community, and in general, the libraries bring to communities. And then I'm going to pass the mic over to Carolyn, who is the community librarian here in Summerland. So she's really the face of the ORL for all of you, and she'll talk about what's happening right now just down the road. So I'm Danielle Hubbard. I'm CEO of the Okanagan Regional Library. I came and spoke with your council just about exactly a year ago. At that point, I'd only been CEO for a year and a half. So it was quite an introductory presentation last year. And I talked about, how we're structured, how we're funded, all that kind of stuff. So this year, it's going to come alive a little bit more, I hope, if I can make the slides change. Sorry, I'm not sure where to point this. Yeah. Just wherever? Oh, okay, there we go. Okay, so the first of the 5 initiatives I wanted to talk about is Summer Reading Club, which is underway right now, full steam ahead. So this is our #1 busiest program all across our system. It is actually a province-wide initiative, so all libraries in BC run some version of Summer Reading Club. But our version of Summer Reading Club, kids can come into any one of our 30 branches. They sign up, they get a reading record, they keep track of what they're reading. And when they hit milestones of how much time they've spent reading, then they get prizes, they come out for programs. The goal of the program is really to encourage kids to keep on reading and learning over the summer so they don't get that learning dip that can sometimes happen in July and August. And oh yes, the clicker worked. So good. So I just pulled a few stats here that really illustrate how much the work of the library is increasing as time goes by. So these are stats from 2024. So in 2024, we had a 35% increase in participation in Summer Reading Club. And that includes from pre-COVID. So we didn't count the years when, people couldn't come out to programs in person, but a 35% increase in participation. Last year, over 8,000 kids registered for the program, so came in and got reading records and prizes. And then almost 29,000 kids and parents attended programs. So this year, our feature presenter is Leif David. He's a magician. He's worked with our system several years, many years before. And he ties in his magic show with the joy of reading, and he ties it in with the theme each year for Summer Reading Club. So it's a really, really popular event. So then the second service I wanted to highlight is the library's provision of electronic resources. So I think for most of us, when you think of a library, you think of books, of course, and we have thousands of those too. But we also offer an increasing array of digital resources. So those are mostly ebooks, e-audiobooks, but also research material, periodicals, things that people can check out digitally, of course, from their phones or tablets or computers, either from, here in Summerland or from vacation somewhere else abroad. So again, a little sample size of stats here. So all of these are increasing. I just wanted to make that really clear that, we're still circulating physical books. Those stats are doing fine, but this is really the area where reading growth is happening all across our system. So again, from last year, we had an 8.6% increase in the downloading and reading of digital books. So almost 800,000 books were borrowed last year, system-wide. And then almost 500,000 audiobooks were downloaded and listened to, which I think is really interesting. It's like a shift in how people are intaking information and stories now. And that was a 23% increase from the year before. And then the steepest increase, which surprised me, honestly, was a 61% increase in digital magazines. So that's magazines, newspapers, news sources, sort of more ephemeral information sources. And so that shows that people are still accessing that kind of information, even if flipping through a physical magazine in a waiting room isn't as big a thing as it used to be. So over 200,000 downloads and accessing of digital magazines last year. And those numbers just keep increasing. So they really took off during COVID, but they've continued to increase ever since then as well. So then quite different from e-resources, the third initiative, I brought a show and tell because it's a little hard to explain otherwise. So the system has recently introduced a collection called Library of Things. So they're physical kits. I have one of them right here that people can check out like they would a book. And they're all very interactive and support different types of learning. So some of the ones we have that are shown on the screen there, we have a radon detection kit that's always borrowed over the summer, so I couldn't get my hands on that one. We have an outdoor play kit. There's a dental hygiene kit, which I have one of those sitting in my office, but I thought it creeped me out a little bit because it has that big mouth. There's a telescope kit, a number of robotics kits, bird watching, there's a bat kit. But the one that I brought today, I think this is where it cues me to show and tell. This is a Braille Lego kit. So it's one of our newer kits. And I won't show you every individual piece of Lego because that would get tedious. But the premise here is that you can make the different letters in the Braille alphabet with Lego. So each Braille letter is a configuration of 6 potential dots in different placements. So this kit has a key that tells you what all the different letters in the Braille alphabet are. And then it has boxes of Lego that have been, so these are special made. These are not regular pieces of Lego, but they are made by Lego. And they're in all the different configurations to represent all the different letters in the alphabet. There's also a sort of a landing pad at the bottom. I don't know the terminology, that bottom piece in Lego that you stick the pieces of Lego onto. So if you're practicing, you can form different words and different sentences. And then my favorite piece of the kit, because it mystified me when this was first delivered to my office, is a muffin tin with 6 tennis balls in it, which is apparently a learning aid that people who are learning Braille truly do use. So depending on the configuration of the tennis balls, it is a different letter in the Braille alphabet. And it's much easier, especially for those of us who can see, it's much easier to feel 6 tennis balls than it is 6 little dots on a piece of Lego. So we have a number of these kits in circulation, and I'm impressed that they are going out immediately. So there's obviously interest in expanding how people are reading and how people are learning. And again, a few stats here. So at the moment, we have 22 different kits in the collection. And last year, they were borrowed just under 2,000 times. And it is a really recent collection. We just started building it a couple of years ago. And then the fourth point I wanted to highlight is the role that all of our branches play as community hubs. So 4 of our locations, we actually have official agreements in place with our local governments to be heating and cooling centers. If there's a heat wave, a heat dome, a cold snap. Summerland is not one of those communities, at least not at the moment. But all of our 30 branches kind of de facto act that way on a more casual basis, that it's really hot out. Unless you came in the day last week when our HVAC was down and it was just as hot inside as outside, which I understand at least one of you came into the library when that happened. But generally speaking, our library is air conditioned and more comfortable than outside. And also all of our branches, they're free community spaces. So we see that people use our spaces to come to programs, to check out books, but also just to have a space to be. So entrepreneurs use the space, you know, newcomers, people looking for housing, people looking for work, all of those folks use public libraries a great deal. And then the final point that I wanted to discuss, because I know the timing is good, that you have a letter of support in your consent agenda that I think Councillor Traynor just pulled for discussion. So I want to talk about funding just a tiny bit. So most of our funding is municipal, about 95% of our funding is municipal. We do get about 5% of our funding comes from the province. So a couple of years ago, we got an additional one-off chunk of funding called the Provincial Enhancement Grant that we've been divvying out to each of our branches to make sure every branch benefits from that funding. But this year, my board and I, so Councillor Traynor is the representative from Summerland on the ORL board, we're organizing a delegation to UBCM and seeking minister meetings. And I will be doing the talking, but you know, it's my board and I that have arranged this, is really advocating that the province increase their level of funding for public libraries. So provincial funding for public libraries was cut by 25% back in 2012 and then was frozen at that point. So of course, what that means is that year after year, it constitutes a smaller and smaller percentage of our operating budget, which then of course local governments, make up the difference on that. So there is a letter in your packages that it's entirely up to you, of course, if you want to sign a letter of support for our meetings. But what we're requesting is an overall increase from the province in the funding that already exists, and then also the introduction of a couple other funding sources. Social well-being and climate relief are the two that we identified, because I was talking about the role that libraries play as hubs for communities. So we really are playing a large social well-being role in communities more and more as time goes by, in addition to the sort of traditional learning and literacy that we're providing. So I could go on about that indefinitely, but I think instead I'll pass the mic over to Carolyn. And if you wanted to ask me questions afterwards, please do. And my contact info is at the end of these slides as well. So what's happening in Summerland?
Let's bring this bit closer. Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, Your Worship, Mayor Holmes, honorable council members. My name is Caroline McKay, and I'm the community librarian at the Summerland branch of the ORL. Thank you for the opportunity for allowing me to speak with you today regarding your public library. It's not just a place for books, but it's a vital community hub, like Danielle mentioned, that encourages lifelong learning, connection, and inclusion. Library usage has been steadily rising year after year. In 2022, we welcomed in Summerland 44,750 people, and that grew to 55,188 in 2023. And in 2024, we reached 64,701. To say our staff are busy is an understatement, and we are continually looking for ways to expand our services and meet the growing needs of our community. Families are turning up for our early literacy programs and then staying to play and socialize for hours at a time. Students are joining our summer reading club. We have a wait list for our upcoming summer programs, which we have our first program tonight. Our Lunch and Learn partner, Interior Health, we're heading into our third year, and we offer adult learning. Job seekers rely on us for computer access. Seniors need one-on-one help, tech help, and when needed, we have 2 wonderful volunteers that provide library at your door service, and they reach out to the homebound residents of Dr. Andrew Pavilion and Prairie Valley Lodge and other places. SOEX is offering English classes once a week for newcomers in Summerland, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. A few things that we offer. Last winter, we held a Taylor Swift dance party for 50 children ages 8 to 12 years old to coincide with Taylor's last concert in Vancouver. So we held 3 hours of singing and dancing to Taylor's music, friendship bracelet making, snacks, and a fun photo booth. I think that the parents and kids appreciated that we could sing, dance, and celebrate this worldwide phenomenon together, and the evening was pure magic. The library meets people where they are at every stage of life, and demand continues to grow. Demand for space, for staffing, for programming. We're proud to say in Summerland that our programs are full, our event repertoire is growing, and the community is responding with enthusiasm. So here's what's up and coming. Valley Voices Okanagan will feature 2 visits from local authors in the fall. The Riga Arts Festival, September 17th to 21st, is showcasing award-winning Indigenous author Brian Thomas Isaac for a reading of his new book, Bones of Giant, at the library. Riga Arts is welcoming Summerland author Danielle Crisa, also known as the Jealous Curator. She has a chat planned about art and your inner critic. Authors Joanna Cockerline and Kevin Heslop will be reading from their latest books. Playwright, author, and screenwriter C.E. Gachalian will be reading and leading a writing workshop.
Tickets are available now for those on the Riga Arts Festival website. Our adult book club meets once a month beginning in the fall and has over 60 members, which is a lot. And lastly, join the Tuesday afternoon fiber artists, also known as TAFA, to knit bunting for a yarn bomb installation at the library during the Summerland Fall Fair. The next gathering is July the 15th, so bring your knitting needles and come and knit a triangle to add to the bunting for their art installation, which they're going to be doing in the Reader's Terrace at the library. We're grateful for Council's continued support. It allows us to continue what we do best, which is serving our community. Thank you, Mayor Holmes and honorable councillors.
Okay, thank you much to both of you. If you need more tennis balls, just let me know. I can help you out.
Okay.
Council, any questions? Councillor Betts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, ladies, for your presentation. Caroline sees me, maybe not as much as Councillor Trainer, but we're still there. I'm limping in this time, but I happened to be there last week on Popsicle Day, and the HVAC was down, and I didn't realize it was a one-off. I would have asked, but I just couldn't wander around very well. So I'm glad to hear that all the HVAC is up and working properly after last year. That's really important because it's these community centers that families and seniors and people come to, especially in heat events and in cold events. And it's nice to have such a welcoming environment. That's something that attracted us to Summerland actually right from the get-go, was having a modern library. Actually, like, that was noticeable in choosing this community. It's really important. I was so happy to see those investments being made in the community and not putting on the back burner. And so that transitions to not understanding that this funding was frozen back in 2012, and to understand how, inflation has hit all of our municipal budgets, that if your funding is frozen, that percentage just continues to shrink, and that's really disappointing. So I'm grateful that you brought that forward and helped us to just understand that issue differently, particularly when the municipality is responsible for filling that gap. So I'm sure we're going to come to it about talking about getting a letter and stuff. So I think that you'll find support around this table for such a request. And I just want to say thank you for all that you do. The Summerland branch is a wonderful place to go all the time. And my daughter will be there tonight doing sparkle jars, provided that the driving team remembers, which that's what, as soon as you got here, I was reminding my parents, because it's a whole family support system for me right now. So thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Trainer.
Carolyn, can you just remind me the number of Summerlanders that use the library in 2024? 64,000, I think you said?
So this was people visits.
People visits, okay?
In 2024, you asked, Erin?
Yeah.
64,701.
Okay. Great, yes, and I echo everything that Councillor Betts said. The library is honestly one of my most favorite things about Summerland. And I think it's so important that we continue to educate people in our community that there are so many resources. Like, I think a lot of people still think of a library as, oh, I just go there to get books. But there's so many things you can do. And you can just go hang out too, if you need a break or you want to meet a friend. And I think that we're so lucky to have that building. So thank you for all that you do.
Thank you.
Sorry, I forgot to mention in my presentation, I also brought some copies of our annual report from last year. So I'll just leave these here, but they have more information about our initiatives from last year.
That's great, thanks. Councillor Peak.
I want to congratulate you ladies and our own staff in particular at the library for all the things that you do. And having worked in the more poverty area in Summerland, I know that there are a lot of people that don't have access to Wi-Fi, and they will go and do their banking at the library. They check on all kinds of things. And that's an opportunity for people that are retired, that are on fixed incomes. It isn't always just lack of money. There are situations in life where you need the community support, and libraries allow that to happen. And there is no identification of who you are or why you need the help. And you can also get some technical information from the people that are at the library. So those services are well appreciated within our community as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? No? Thank you very much. And we'll be discussing the letter later in the agenda.
Thank you all so much. And thanks for taking the time to talk with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We move on now to the public comment opportunity for agenda items. Would anybody like to make any comments? Don't see any one. So we'll move on to our business items. First thing up will be 9.1 Summerland Fire Department quarterly update. Chief Robinson, please.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, Council. Good afternoon. My first slide for our quarterly updates for 2025 is Dave Chubak. He has served in our department, I should say Captain Dave Chubak, have served in our department for 40 years. And I didn't do any history looking, but I think it's one of our longest members standing since the inception of the fire department. So I wanted to congratulate him, and the team got him a cake in February. So moving on to our quarterly stats, I actually included the first 6 months since we were into July. So I concluded January to June, and our incidents for the first 6 months, 164 incidents, and we are up 20 more calls than this time last year. And I kind of did a quick scan, and it was kind of all over the board. It's not one individual line item. It's kind of up the 20 calls is all over all the different kinds of incidents that we track. And then our second slide talks about our training. Again, we're slightly up on our training as well, from 191 this year compared to 178 from last year. I think this helped by, we had the training officers located in Penticton this year, and that helped. We took advantage of that and sent a few of our paid on-call members to that. And on there, we talk about different kind of courses on the very last line. And we sent a few people to our aerial strategies and tactics, fire service instructor, open water rescue, wildland training, train the trainer, and hose handling. We also sent 6 auxiliary firefighters to a forestry engine boss course in Lake Country in March, which helps us with our local fires here, but also our helping out our mutual aid partners. And my next slide is open burning. We had a slight decrease, not a lot, 21 people that didn't burn from last year kind of thing. So it's not a huge number. We had 35 days this year from January till April burning, whereas last year we had 33. And again, as usual, in April 15th, we closed down burning for the year and reopens October 15th, weather permitting. My next slide is about inspections and consistent inspection numbers for this half year compared with other years. Overall, just up about 51. That's not a huge percentage, but up a few. And then my last slide consists of the public education events that we do. Again, consistent numbers for this half year. We are getting a few more Fire Smart people asking questions in our town about Fire Smart. So that's encouraging for me and my staff to know that we're getting out there with Fire Smarting. So it's very good. And then the last thing I just wanted to say, this Saturday from 11 till 12, come and visit the fire station. We've got our open house going on. Got lots of trucks available for kids and adults that have never sat in trucks. Also, our RCMP and BC Ambulance Services will be there as well too. Thank you, and I'll take any questions.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Peak.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Rob, could you give me an example on the inspection sheet of high hazard, medium hazard, and low hazard? I don't know. I'm not aware what those breakdowns are.
Thank you, Counselor, through the mayor. They are, so low hazards. I don't have the sheet exactly in front of me of what they are, but it's kind of like a smaller kind of industrial business. A medium-sized hazard is a kind of a medium-sized building, and then a high hazard is a higher hazard. So to do with fuel loads, combustibles inside their buildings. So if like a welding shop would be a high hazard, whereas off the top of my head, I can't even think of what a medium hazard, kind of like an industrial business that does low hazard stuff, like a cemetery business versus a garage. So garage would be a high hazard. Cemetery, making headstones and that kind of stuff would be a low hazard. Not as much chemicals, kind of a hazard, if that makes sense, hazardous levels.
Okay,
Number 1 being the highest and number 3 being the lowest.
thank you. Appreciate the
Okay.
examples.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Anyone else? No? Get a, do we need a motion to receive? Yeah, motion to receive, Counselor Peak, Counselor Trainer, all in favor? That carries. And now move on to the Community Emergency Preparedness Fund. Chief Robinson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a publication notice and evacuation route planning grant. This is a joint grant with the RDUS, Town of Osoyoos, and the Village of Karamias. There are no financial implications to the District of Summerland, as the RDUS is taking the lead on this grant. We have notification and evacuations in place already, but were done many years ago, and this gives us the district a chance to update and improve the existing plan. A few key objectives that we'll be looking at is improving the GIS spatial data set and align with provincial data standards, updating evacuation zone and routes capacity assessments, particularly for wildfire, flood, and geotechnical hazards, enhancing integration with public notification platform between communities and ensuring aligning with the BC emergency alerts. So that's kind of what we're looking for this grant. Any questions?
Thank you. Any questions, Council? Counselor Peak?
Not so much about your statement on the report, but I did look at the application, and I was wondering if there's an opportunity. It talks about it's on page 5 of the actual application, and it talks about the opportunity of creating a position or adding a new responsibility to an existing position. And I'm wondering if there's an opportunity to add in part of our media or communication person for the kind of work that would be done during this type of project. And I can't remember exactly where it is. They also talk about an honorarium for certain organizations that would also service people in the community during those times of need. And I'm wondering if the Food Bank and Resource Center for Summerland might be added to that as an honorarium.
Thank you, Councillor Peak, through the mayor. Yes, I can definitely, when I do my coordination with this, I can bring all that up for sure.
Okay, thank you very kindly.
Thank you, Counselor Betts.
Thank you. And thank you, Chief Robinson. I feel like every time that you come and bring forward these different grant proposals, like council's behind you, but what I always appreciate is that it helps for me to develop a better understanding of our emergency preparedness, both here in Summerland and regionally. And so, I just thank you for bringing that to us, because those are the kinds of questions that ultimately come up, in the case when everybody needs it, but you really just have to do all that work in advance for it to work well in the right time. So thank you.
Thank you.
We'll bring forward.
I'll bring forward the motion as recommended.
Okay, could we get that on the screen? Second, Councillor Fee. Okay, there it is to approve the grant. And any further discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor? And none opposed, that carries. Thank you, Chief Robinson. Moving on to 9.3, another grant opportunity for the 2025 Strategic Priorities Fund. And this is our Director of Utilities and Director of Community Services.
Thank you, Mayor Holmes. I'll kick us off on this one. The Strategic Priorities Fund is a provincial grant delivered through UBCM, leveraging Federal Canada Community Building Funds for strategic and regionally impactful projects. Up to 125 million is available for the 2025 intake. Projects are 100% funded and capped at 7 million. We can submit one application under there's two streams. We can submit one on each stream. The first stream is the capital infrastructure stream, and that's like the construction stream. And then the other stream is the capacity building stream, and that's like the studies and reports stream. Applications are due in September, and there's additional details in the council report, and I've also attached the guideline. If we could start with the capacity building stream, that's reverse of what's in the report, because there's only one project in there that staff are recommending, and that's a liquid waste management plan. So this is the stream that is for reports and studies. A liquid waste management plan is a comprehensive long-term strategy to manage all types of liquid waste in Summerland, including municipal sewage, stormwater runoff, and on-site septic systems. It's a flexible and regionally tailored alternative to provincial regulations and must be approved by the BC Ministry of Environment. The goal of a liquid waste management plan is to protect public health and the environment while planning for future growth, infrastructure needs, and climate change resilience. This plan will assist Summerland in addressing existing issues like aging infrastructure and community growth, and outline a sustainable path forward for waste treatment, discharge, reuse, and monitoring. The development of a liquid waste management plan happens in 3 stages. The first stage involves identifying existing problems, reviewing current systems, and setting environmental goals and exploring potential options. The second stage, communities conduct detailed technical, environmental, and cost analysis to compare solutions and select preferred strategy. And in the final stage, that's preparing the full plan, setting out timelines, the funding strategy, bylaw adjustments, reporting mechanisms, followed by council adoption and formal submission to the province for approval. It's a pretty heavy lift, and it does take a couple of years to complete. Through the process, significant public and stakeholder engagement is required. An approved liquid waste management plan is not only a tool for regulatory compliance, it also supports access to grants and borrowing powers that would otherwise require electoral approval. It aligns with the broader community plans by creating a solid framework for decision-making and investment. A liquid waste management plan is part of sustainable infrastructure planning, ensuring communities are equipped to manage liquid waste safely, efficiently, and have long-term environmental responsibility. Staff, we spoke with colleagues who in other municipalities and consultants who have worked on these plans recently, and we're expecting we'll need to apply for $600,000 to this grant to fund that project. As I say, it's a heavy lift. It does require some preliminary design for the wastewater treatment plant, which we know is nearing capacity. And it's good timing with the OCP work that we're doing. Because council's planning out what the community is going to look like in the future and where density is going to happen, and we can use that. This liquid waste management plan actually requires a updated OCP in order to inform this report. So the timing is good for this, and it'll lay out how do we handle all that liquid waste going forward. So that's our staff suggestion for that one. We can continue with the other streams, the construction streams.
Let's just take questions on this one first, maybe. Councillor Trainer.
Okay, I just have a couple quick questions. 600,000, is that the cap of the grant or is that the cost of this plan?
This stream has the same cap as the $7 million cap. It actually doesn't really specify it in the guidelines, so we're assuming it's the 7 million. But we think that the project will cost 600,000.
That's a lot for a plan. Yeah. I mean, I don't know how much these plans cost in general, but that seems like a really big chunk of money for a plan. How would this fit in with our asset management plan that we've done?
Thank you, Councillor. Through the mayor, that's a great question. So this is like an addendum to a asset management plan. So the asset management work we did prior showed what our infrastructure deficit looked like, and the wastewater utility was probably the best of the three utilities when we looked at that. But with the recent development through the last 5 years, we're seeing that, hey, the treatment plant is going to need some work and probably some expansion to handle that extra effluent coming in. So it's really more about future growth and looking towards the future than it is about current assets and replacing them.
Thank you. I just have one more follow-up. In the last paragraph, you said it's a tool for regulatory compliance. So does that mean that we need to have this plan done?
Thank you, Councillor. Through the mayor. Currently, some people in the industry think that that's where the province will go at some point, but currently it is not a requirement. No.
Okay. And then finally, it says it will help support access to grants and borrowing powers that would otherwise require electoral approval. What does that mean?
Thank you. So that means once this plan is approved and approved by the province, then we could borrow money as per this plan without going through the AAP process. That's my understanding. So this is approval to borrow and to fund the projects listed in this plan. The approval is already established from the province when the plan is approved.
CEO.
Which is also why significant community engagement is required through the whole process.
Will this preclude us from getting any grants we might be eligible for from the OBWB or a liquid waste management plan? So they also can provide funding, I believe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We could probably apply on those. So say we're successful with this grant and we're moving forward on it and we do a procurement process and we see how much the pricing comes in. It could come in less, it could come in higher. You know, this is basically some basic research speaking to people in the industry to come up with a budget, a planning level budget. We could apply on other grants to maybe top things up, or we could use the OBWB grant for some other water projects or what have you as well. So,
Councillor Peak, then Barkwell.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I think this is a significant thing to be doing. I think it's an important project. I certainly understand it in terms of the asset management, but in terms of opening up the planning and the opportunity for what we need to go as we're going into the future. I wanted to make sure that all 3 stages would be covered with this particular study.
thank you, Councillor, through the mayor. Yes, we expect the 600,000 is the total cost of the study.
Very good. I think it's an excellent opportunity for us.
Councillor Barkwell.
My understanding is that the OBWB, Okanagan Basin Water Board, strongly encourages the liquid waste management plans. And they make it a requirement if we want to have septic fields in lots smaller than 1 hectare. And that will be a benefit to having this plan, is opening up some development potential. And I don't know if they contribute towards the plans, but my understanding is that they are, it's a big thing to them. And maybe a letter of support and some of their material would help us towards the grant.
That'd be a good idea, I think. Councillor Betts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we've talked about what the potential upsides are of the opportunity. Even that investment that's a big investment, $600,000 on one plan, even if it's fully grant funded. I understand that. So can we talk about, are there any downsides? Are we obligated, once we have a plan and we know the realities of what our community is facing over 20 years, are we legally obligated to make changes in the near future once we receive the results of those plans? Just trying to look ahead a little bit.
Thank you, Councillor, through the mayor. I'm not sure if we'd be forced to execute the plan. I think the expectation from the province would be that, yes, we would execute the plan. The part of the trouble with projecting future growth is you're projecting future growth. So, how much growth are we really going to see? We see a lot of applications, development applications and electric utility service requests, water connection requests that don't actually come to fruition. So what are we going to actually see over the next 10 years? The OCP is going to lay a little bit of that out. We have some modeling already to show, okay, the projects that are on the books currently, how much flow will that bring to the wastewater treatment plant? But we don't really have a study showing how those flows will affect the plant and how to build out from there. But to answer your question, we'd have to look into that. We could get an email out to council to see what our legal obligations would be after we have a plan in place.
I think, for like with everything else, if you don't have one of these plans, you can forget about applying for future grants. And we know with our sewage treatment plant, we got big costs. That's big costs for really a limited number of users. And we're going to need grants at some point down the road. Well, we could use them now, but so I really think, as Councillor Park was saying, that you're going to see a lot more of these. It's discussed a lot at the OPWB, and I think this is just kind of the next big thing that more and more local governments are going to have to do, especially local governments with a lot of rural areas like ours. So I think this makes a lot of sense myself. Any further discussion on this before we move on to the next one? No, everybody's generally good with that. Corporate officer, do we want separate motions or one big motion? One big one at the end? Okay, so go ahead for the
Thank you, Mayor.
Infrastructure stream.
So capital infrastructure stream, this is the construction stream. Staff are proposing 3 projects. Again, only one. We can only apply for one of these. And so, sorry, just scrolling down here. The first one is the Flume. We've applied for 3 grants for this project and have been unsuccessful. Had to throw this one in here because this is one of these important projects that doesn't get a lot of grant attention because it's not really a major dam safety issue, but it is super important for our water supply. So the existing flume and intake structure, which are the sole source of drinking water for the water treatment plant, are approximately 60 years old and are past end of life. The concrete flume is exposed to the elements and the condition of the concrete is poor with frequent repairs needed. You can actually pull this concrete apart by hand. It is definitely end of life. The condition and exposure of the flume are a significant risk to the district's water supply. The flume is a single point of failure of safe drinking water to the community. The elevated creek levels during spring freshet have the potential to overtop the creek bank and current intake structure. This would allow uncontrolled flow into the flume, which could increase the height of the Summerland reservoir, which could cascade into a dam breach there. So we're proposing this as an option.
Yeah, go ahead.
Jeremy, I like that you put this in here, but it has been rejected, what, you said 3 times? Do we know why? And if we're going to pick this one again, because I think this one is really important, what are you proposing to do differently than the last 3 times?
Thank you, Councillor, through the mayor. So we do this every time, but we're going to review the guideline and just make sure we're hitting those key points. This grant opportunity is really focusing on regional impact. So maybe not just your community, but around your community. And so the angle we're going to take on this one here is that there is agricultural water coming through this flume. And so that's a regional impact because it's food supply. So now the grant provider said this is not a grant for agriculture. There's other grants for that. So we want to comment on that, but not focus on that and really hammer home the drinking water supply. So we did meet with them before we came to council to choose our projects. And they felt that this one had a chance. No commitments, of course, but we recognize, I don't know why those past projects past applications are being rejected. We of course meet with them afterwards, and they usually say it's oversubscribed, and they don't really give you a lot of fine detail. But we sort of keep trying, and currently this infrastructure needs replacement. One nice thing about this project, it is shovel ready. There's a design in hand. It's ready to go. We could post a procurement opportunity very quickly on this. So we're hoping that gives us an edge as well.
Did they say what those other grants for agriculture were? That's what I'd ask, because we're having a hard time finding those. Councillor Barkman.
So there's really 2 separate components here on this. One is a flume intake rate and all that goes with that. And that's where I think the bigger risk is if we have a big flood on Trout Creek, which is more and more possible as our climate change happens. But the flow of the water down the crumbling flume doesn't really worry me much. Go back, it used to be a creek. Why it can't be naturalized, I don't know. Maybe it'd be different grants for naturalizing the flume and putting in proper natural vegetation along the banks and things. Wouldn't there be a better chance if we just had a application that stuck to the intake part where the risk is a little bit more immediate and obvious?
Thank you, Councillor, through the mayor. We are going to propose this one as so that it could potentially be staged. So we'll start with the intake and then move on to the flume. That's going to be in the application, so they know that we can actually break this project up if we wanted to. And when we proposed that to them, they were very interested in that. Yeah.
So it'd be possible that they'd only give us the money for the first stage. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Councillor.
You mentioned that it's regionally focused. That's kind of what they're. Does Summerland ever, would we ever in emergency supply water to any, like the RDOS or any surrounding communities? Because I'm just thinking if there was like a wildfire or something happened and we had to supply water, that could be a note that you put in there in terms of the regional aspect.
Thank you, Councillor. We don't have a plan for that currently, and we've never had those discussions as long as I've worked here, 6 or 7 years now. I've not spoken to Peachland or RDOS or Penticton about some backup supply, so haven't had those conversations. Is it possible? To some extent, but there is a big lake in between us, so that's kind of that. Now, one thing I missed in my notes here was we have applied to the Disaster Resilience and Innovation Funding for the flume. We've submitted an expression of interest to that grant for this project already as well. So that actually went in last month. So we have applied on another grant for this project. It didn't require council resolution.
Okay, Councillor Pete.
So we have more irons in the fire. That's good. You would also, I would presume that you would also emphasize the fact that you have preliminary engineering plans on it.
Okay, just one comment on that, Mr. Mayor. We actually have detailed design complete. So, yeah.
Okay, so water system separation now.
Hey, Mr. Mayor. Just briefly, in an effort to reduce demand on the water treatment plant, one of the priorities of the Water Master Plan is the separation of Giants Head Road water system. Significant portion of that infrastructure has already been installed through some previous projects that we've done. But the extent of the remaining system separation includes some upstream work near Aileen Avenue, water main installation from the Oval Boat down to the Badminton Hall roundabout, and then water main replacement from that same intersection, the roundabout, down Prairie Valley, and then south along Giants Head, all the way up to Harris Road. And that was the end of the water twinning project we did 3 years ago now. That's where that water comes in. So as well, the project could also be an opportunity to extend the multi-use pathway along Giants Head Road from Milne Road, where it currently ends, to Prairie Valley Road, and then west along Prairie Valley to the Rosedale Avenue roundabout. And that was just in the recently adopted transportation plan, and it's part of the Trails of the Okanagan's route. So significant cost to this project, and this one doesn't have detailed design as the last one did. Just at high level, we're looking at around $9 million for all the water infrastructure as well as the pathways going along there.
So I guess the obvious question is, if they're concerned about the flume being focused on drinking water, not irrigation water, how are you going to spin this one that it focuses on drinking water, not irrigation water?
I think the fact that it focuses on the treatment plant and the capacity of the treatment plant. So right now, the last few years have been good, but a few years before that, we were at near or maybe over capacity for the water plant. So this would give us a little bit of breathing room within that water treatment plant for the drinking water component.
Councillor Beth.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think that a really good way to look at that is to compare to how communities have been extending the length of and the lifespan of their landfills by shifting gears and encouraging composting. It's an investment in multiple different assets at the same time, and it takes a big overall shift in strategy. Look, we have that data to show that we've reduced garbage to the landfill by 30 or 35% in 1 year, year over year. So if we're able to, in our community, focus on that system separation and completion, thinking about the water that can then be used for humans rather than just watering, I mean, it's such an opportunity. So anyway, just that one part of thinking about the project. But in terms of the proposed $9 million moving forward, if this project is selected, would that cover the entire project? What I feel like 9 million isn't enough for what you're saying the scope of the full project is. So what would the district be responsible for in this scenario?
Yeah, through the mayor. So the grant is up to $7 million. So everything above the 7 million, the district would be responsible for. Obviously, we would look for other grant sources. In the next, if council decided that this is the direction we wanted to go, I would be pushing to try to get better estimates on, because we don't have detailed design for this. So with that, we don't have the detailed cost estimates. They're very like Class D estimates, plus or minus 40%. So we would try to hone in a little bit more, but at this point, 9 million is our best guess with the information that we have. So.
Thank you. And I mean, if this was the successful project, there might be opportunities for active transportation grants or even agricultural water grants additionally, if they're allowed to kind of piggyback on top of the other ones. But thank you.
Councillor Barkle?
Yeah, I can easily, in my mind anyhow, relate this to a safe drinking water in that when we reach that capacity and we're asking farmers to cut back, or else we put on boil water advisories. If we'd done boil water advisories, then you have sort of that evidence in hand that, hey, we need this in order to provide safe drinking water. And whether they'll look at the voluntary cutbacks that farmers have made as being the equivalent, I'm not so sure, but we can always make that argument, and I think it's a very, very good one. The only trouble with this one, we're kind of tapped out on capital projects at the moment, and if we have to contribute money, it's going to be hard, and also we might have to be contributing towards the aquatic center. So, if we can only apply for one, the water supply intake's still my choice. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. CAO?
Yeah, just in terms of sort of maybe tempering expectations, I think I recall in looking at the guidelines of the grant that there's some limitations on federal grant stacking. So if we did find other grants, it's possible it'd have to be more on the provincial side, which are hard to find in relation to this. So it could be that even if we got the full 7 million, we might be on the hook for the remainder. You never know. Other grants are being announced all the time. And Joe, I might have missed it. Did you give the water savings total if we do separate?
No, I didn't. It's about 5 megaliters.
Yeah,
So,
5 million liters per day.
And the treatment capacity is 75 million.
Yeah, so it's a lot.
It's a good percentage.
Okay, Councillor Barkle?
That 5 million megaliters could all go towards housing. And that's a lot of housing, right? That's a lot. The other, and I don't know, is the liquid waste management plan, does it have a regional focus like these? We're trying to, like the capital infrastructure stream has? Because certainly you can put a regional spin on this one. That's not the right word, but a benefit because we're reducing pollutants into the lake would be a big part of that, and that's what the OBWB is all about. So, if that helps, we certainly have to emphasize that.
Okay, so let's move on to the aquatic center.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So as council is aware, an application was submitted to the Green and Inclusive Community Buildings Fund for a project total of just under $3 million to implement a variety of critical building repairs and upgrades for the Summerland Aquatic and Fitness Center, boilers, water tanks, pool filtration system, HVAC, electrical, which fit into that grant criteria, plus additional rooftop solar panels. The district is still waiting for results of that grant application, which was submitted over a year ago. And nobody's been notified on any grants, so they just haven't announced anything yet. The current 5-year maintenance plan estimates that an additional $1 million is required to implement repairs and upgrades to the building over the next 5 years. So council may want to consider applying for this grant in the amount of $4 million in case the district is not successful with the GICB grant. In discussions with the grant funders, this project does qualify for the program. However, it is recommended that last year's cost estimates be updated for this grant application should council choose this project, which will have a cost implication. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Peak?
Thank you very much, Your Worship. So you've been in touch with other areas that applied for these grants, and nobody's received notices at all? Or have you inquired of the ministry that they came through?
Through the mayor to Councillor Peak, So on the grant page, to look at grant announcements for the GICB grant, there are no announcements. And I have discussed with a few other people, in early days, there were a few GICB grants that were awarded related to First Nations projects, but no general projects have been announced for this intake that we applied for, that I'm aware of.
I must say, over a year to answer grants seems a little ridiculous.
There was an election which probably threw things for a bit of a loop, but no excuse. No. These two projects where we already have grants applications in for other funds. What if we get those? What if we hear that we get those grants and we already have an application in for the whatever the building infrastructure strategic priorities fund? We pull our application, or how does that work? Nobody knows. Okay, be a nice problem to have, I guess. So for the application we have in for the flume right now, is that for the same amount as what we're applying for now?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's just an expression of interest. And so it's not a true application yet. Yeah.
Yeah. Councilor Betts.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. It looks like we're getting to that point of trying to kind of navigate which one we try to move forward with. Tough because we have two grant applications, or one expression of interest, one grant application, an election in the meantime, changing priorities with the new government. Really hard to say if those grants are even going to be continued to be looked at all. I mean, for the pool. I can see the opportunity with the Giants Head water separation project, but like Councillor Barkwell said, we're pretty tapped out on capital projects, and we would be required to continue investment from the district to that project, which is really hard to, you have to have your eyes wide open to these additional costs. So for me, just kind of in navigating that, even though I think that's one of the better long-term investments for our community, the risk of the flume failing and affecting safe drinking water into our community becomes the top priority for me, I think, unless somebody else changes my mind. Okay, thanks.
Councillor Trainer.
I think I'm leaning towards the flume project. I just wanted to add, when Councillor Barkwell and I were in Ottawa and we were giving feedback on grants, the number one thing I said was the time frame. I said, the federal government puts out these grant programs. We all rush to get them in on deadline, and then it's like radio silence, and it's so frustrating because we can't plan. And so we did give that feedback to FCM. So hopefully they pass that on to the government, because it's really frustrating. Anyhow, I think for me, the flume project, this has been around since I've been on council, and the only thing that concerns me is that we have applied 3 times, and so I'm wondering, do they not think it's a valuable project? Like, what's going on? Maybe the programs are oversubscribed, but I would like to see us try this one again. It's just one of those projects that's always there that we know we need to take care of, so we just need to get it done, and grant funding is the best opportunity. So that's what I would vote for, unless somebody changes my mind, and I'm open to being changed, so.
I'm of the same mind. I think these things, they all have their time, and I think it's now the time for the flume. And I think the water, as Councillor Betts said, the water separation project is so important to the future of our town, but I think it's too soon. I think it's too big of a project for right now. But maybe for the next intake, it'll be the right project. And the aquatic center, I just, well, who knows? Maybe we'll get that GIS, that grant. It's possible. It's it made sense applying for it, and it still makes sense today that it seems like a valid project that they might fund. But until we hear from that, I don't really think we should be sinking too much if there's other parties spending too much money on it. It's my view. Councillor Peak.
I also agree for all the reasons stated by other people that the Flume one is the one that I would go for in this particular round.
Okay, so there seems to be some general consensus. Somebody want to bring a motion forward? Councillor Trina?
So I will bring forward that the capital infrastructure stream, that we choose the Flume project. So the first one, water supply intake. And then, sorry, so that's for the capital infrastructure stream, and then the capacity building stream, the liquid waste management plan.
And the rest of it as well as staff?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. It's on the screen there. Any further discussion? Oh, you second, Councillor Betts seconds. And no discussion, all in favor? And none opposed, that carries. 9.4, fees and charges. Director of Corporate Services.
Thank you, Mayor Holmes. So consideration of the proposed fees and charges bylaw number 2025-015 was deferred from the June 17th council meeting. So staff were able to amend the draft bylaw to remove the reference of the BC Zero Carbon Step Code in Schedule E. So back before council is the bylaw with the requested amendments, which include proposed amendments to Schedule A, the electric rates, and Schedule E, building permit fees. So same as before, the proposed changes to Schedule A are in relation to the distributed generation fees and charges following previous council direction to adjust the produced energy rate from the residential rate to the wholesale rate, as well as the meter installation will be billed at cost instead of a fixed rate to accommodate the different meter types now allowed. And the proposed changes to Schedule E are to remove the one rebate of the mid-construction blower door rebate. With that, I'm happy to take any questions about the bylaw, and I believe Brad may be online and Jeremy are here, or the Director of Utilities and Director of Development Services are able to answer any technical questions.
Okay, thank you very much. And Councillor Betts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to clarify, this is the one that was deferred from last meeting. Is that right? Brought forward? Yeah, sorry. This is where I was at the hospital. So I'm glad that this is back before us, and I'm just feeling when it comes to the Schedule A, the electric rates, that this is part of the larger discussion about our entire solar program, how it affects our electrical utility, how our corporation administers this type of program. And I would move to remove Schedule A electric rates from this motion.
Okay, so there's no motion on the floor right
Oh,
now.
that's not helpful.
So not sure how you would do that. It's all tied in together, right?
Through the mayor to Councillor Betts. So Schedule A was drafted in accordance to align with the previous direction council gave at the May 6th meeting. What we could do today is if council did agree with Councillor Betts, you could say that the fees and charges amendment bylaw number 2025 -015 be read a first, second, and third time as amended to remove Schedule A, meaning it would be adopted coming forward with only Schedule E.
Okay. Do you want to bring that forward now, or do you want to have some questions answered first?
I would bring it forward for discussion. I'd bring the motion forward, and I'm happy to put it on the table.
Okay, do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Van Alstrom second. So it's on the table. So basically it's just Schedule E that's on the table, not Schedule A. Anybody want to ask questions or discuss? The motion that's on the table is that Schedule E is to be brought forward. So basically just removing the mid-construction blower door rebate. That's the only thing that's on the table right now, nothing else. So, Councillor Betts.
Thank you. For discussion's sake, I've been doing a lot of thought into our entire solar program. I feel like as a community, we are still navigating where the right landing spot is for our entire program, and that by turning this dial, or turning one dial on our entire program. I know we went through this, so I apologize to staff. But we're not accounting for all of the benefits, financial benefits of solar, of not having to generate additional and import additional electricity into our community. And for that reason, I just feel like turning this dial is not part of a whole answer. It's not part of a whole solution. And I think that it should be addressed as a whole program, as we proposed through the task force moving forward.
Okay, so yeah, there's no questions, a stopgap. My question is, so what if this doesn't move forward, then we revert to the pause that we put on the program. Does that remain, or are we removing the pause? I mean, CAO?
It'd be my recommendation, Mr. Mayor, that we'd have to revert to the pause. Because the other thing that council did, and some of the tweaking that was done to the program criteria, is they allowed now sort of that commercial and industrial large scale solar. So if we only were to revert to a residential rate payout rather than wholesale, but we did expand the program now to potentially very large applications, there could be significant financial exposure to the electric utility, which hasn't been analyzed. So I think we'd want to revert to the pause until we can further evaluate, or until we got advice from a potential task force.
Well, it'd either be reverting to the pause or reverting to how it originally was, which didn't include commercial, right?
Yeah, fair comment. Could be either of those.
Councillor Barkle.
Yeah, I don't agree with taking out the changes to Schedule A at all. We've been through this debate once, and I don't think we're prepared to have a proper debate about it again. I mean, I would if I'd had time, knew this was going to come up, but none of these issues are fresh in my mind anymore, but they were at the time that we made the decisions. And it really isn't about importing power and how much we import and how much we don't import, because some people have power on their roofs. It's about maintaining the financial strength and integrity of our distribution system, and putting in the fees that are appropriate for the costs involved in people having their own solar on their houses. That's what it's about. It's not, and we're not in the business of subsidizing solar because it's a green thing to do, because it's not even a green thing to do. This is just about maintaining the financial integrity of the system, and having appropriate charges for people who are installing different equipment and not being supported by the other ratepayers. So, yeah, I think, and I don't think this is the final answer, but if we're going to make further tweaks, then we got to be prepared with a report on the issues and such. And that's probably going to happen down the road.
Councillor Melton.
Thank you. I seconded this motion because I think this is a way bigger discussion. You know, we have public meetings about our OCP. We have public meetings about trails. I think this is a community discussion that we need to have. When you say we don't, supplement our electrical, we can look at our own solar project up on Cartwright. If I'm not mistaken, it's $30-something thousand a year it generates, with a line item of $50-something thousand in maintenance. So obviously we're supplementing that. When we started with the electrical charging stations, I think it was grant funded. We put $180-something thousand into that. And we gave electricity away for how many years? You know, so I think it's a bigger conversation that needs to be had. Are we a forward-thinking community? Is solar important to us? Penticton seems to do it. Grand Forks, Nelson. I don't know why we're so different, you know, so right now there's grants available from Fortis for $5,000 for solar plus $5,000 for battery storage. We don't have those abilities here. So I think it's a larger conversation that we need to have. We've talked about the larger conversation in the past, but we haven't had it. So I think we should pause this until we have that conversation.
Councillor Patton?
Thank you, Worship. I'm on the same stage as Councillor Barkwell. What this motion was doing was giving our commercial users, anybody over 200 amps, the ability to get the meter to be able to generate. So everything that we do in regards to this is going to be baby steps. And every time that we do this, we've done this on domestic second services, where it took, 3-4 years to make a decision. And every year we paid the price. This is baby steps, and this is giving that commercial component, anybody over 200 amps, the ability to tie into solar and or to generate solar for. And so I think that this is gives us the opportunity. Is it perfect? No. Does it suit what we need to do right now for those users? Yes.
Councillor Peak?
I have some ambivalency, but I agree with the fact that I think we should ask this now. I still would like to have further detailed discussion, and I agree with Councillor Barkwell that it's not right in the front of my mind, the details around that. But I do have concerns around whether we pay out a credit at the end of a year or whether we roll it over. And I think there's opportunity to have a discussion about that. But I would see for some certitude to pass this amendment as it's presented at this time and bring the other portion back for discussion after it.
Can you remind me, Mr. Storveld, is the new program, we're still going to continue paying it people out at the end of the year, or does it just continue to roll over each month by month?
I'll take that one. Mr. Mayor, the intent of this new program is still to pay people out at the end of the year? Yes.
Councillor Barkwell?
I was just looking at the red line change here. Anything over $100 paid out, under 100, it'll just roll over. Yeah, I agree with, I'd go, I'd like to reinforce what Councillor Peak said. These are, these are baby steps here. This is just, you know, some updated fees and charges to get the program going back in place so people can get their installations, if they choose, to install solar right now. People are annoyed, putting it lightly, that they haven't been able to put any solar for a year. And these changes, like I say, they're relatively minor. I think they're all beneficial, and maybe they're not as beneficial as a $5,000 rebate if you want to have that discussion, but at least it's a start and it's an updating. We understood at the time that we were going to be subsidizing solar because we were a forward-looking community, and we put in some EV chargers, and we took the grant for the solar and battery storage, and we'll see how that works out. We don't have an answer on the battery storage savings, but you know, those are correctly forward-looking sort of social benefit type of expenses we're incurring. This is not in that category. This is just bringing the fees and things up to date, and it's a minor step. And if you want to have the whole discussion about other steps, then let's have that later. But we can't have it today.
Yeah, I've always had it in my mind that that larger conversation would be happening. I remember when we discussed this, when this came to us, that I was disappointed that there was a lack of vision in what was being proposed. So I agree. I see this as just a step. I think, in terms of the big thing is switching from paying back on to a wholesale rate rather than a retail rate. Speaking to Penticton and others, it's just a matter of time before they move to paying out in wholesale rate. Paying out in retail rate isn't sustainable for anybody as you get more and more. We got there sooner just because we had such a great uptake. And I agree that we need to start letting people can always install solar. We're not stopping anybody from installing solar. It's just whether they participate in our program or not. And I think we got to open this program up and it might not be ideal, but at least it gets people back into the program, and we can have that larger conversation and make tweaks or changes or really put our thought to it further down the road. But I think we need to get moving on this. Okay. Any further discussion? Councillor Barkwell.
Just a procedural change or question. If we defeat this motion, can we then just put the original motion as presented in the staff report back on the table for a vote? Is that okay?
See the corporate officer saying yes. Yeah. So I'll call the question to have the motion on the table is to remove Schedule A. All in favor? Councillor Betts Van Alphen. Those opposed? And 5 opposed. No, 4, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, 5 opposed. Okay, so does somebody else want to bring another motion forward? Councillor Peak?
I'll bring the motion or in the original form back,
The staff
the
recommendation?
staff recommendation.
Okay, could we get that up on the screen? Basically, it's just Schedule A and E. So did I get a second on that? Second, Councillor Patton. Any further discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor? And opposed? Councillor Van Alphen and Betts opposed. That carries. Councillor Barkwell.
Just a related question. It's come to my attention that we can save money by automatically reading the bylaws, or reading the meters. And I just wondered if the staff were proceeding with that process that was sort of inadvertently brought to light by one of the solar operators.
Through the mayor to Councillor Barkwell, yes, we are currently working with Itron to try to get that working.
Councillor Peak?
We had so much discussion on the other. It's going backwards away, but could I ask a couple of questions on the report that came forward with the fees?
Sure.
Okay, so I had a question around mobile beach vending permit fee. And it names 3 beaches. And do you have to have an application to pay $700 for each of the beaches? Or is it just one $700 application?
Through the mayor to Councillor Betts, the application fee is $700 and that gives you the ability to vend at any of those beaches. One fee for all beaches.
If I may, Mr. Mayor. My other question was, it was on cable TV and in the report it speaks to Shaw Cable And I know that Shaw changed its name, so it's Rogers and whatever. Does it have to be changed in here to be applicable? And I don't remember exactly what their name changes. Anyway, I just bring it up as a maybe housekeeping.
Well, still Sean, and Sean, my email is still shaw.ca. Sure they'll look into that. Let's move on to 9.5, electrical utility capital budget amendment, Mr. Storveld.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So council, the electric utility has 4 line trucks, 2 bucket trucks and 2 digger derricks. Unit 870 is the fleet vehicle that we're talking about in this council report. It's a 1995 digger derrick, so it's 30 years old. A digger derrick carries tools for us, and as a derrick, it basically is like a crane. It lifts transformers, power poles, heavy reels of wire, that sort of thing. Absolutely essential to our operations. It's an older fleet vehicle, and we need it for those complicated repairs and line stringing and power pole replacements. So we have 2 of them. This is the old one. And it doesn't see as much use as the newer one that we have, but it is critical when we're doing certain maintenance activities, or for instance, like on Prairie Valley Road, where we've had to move that power line over for that work. We need all of our line trucks on a job like that. And we have no extra. We need all 4 that we have. This Unit 870 underwent its annual inspection, and they discovered some cracks in the frame, and the outriggers also were cracked. And the mechanics had a look at that and said, you can't use this truck anymore. And they were concerned for the safety of the users, and that the decking could actually come right off the frame. So they also said that the repairs would be cost prohibitive to make, and it is a 30-year-old vehicle. Currently, we are renting the City of Penticton's spare digger derrick, and they would like that back as soon as possible because they need it for sort of the same reason. But they are renting it to us currently. So we do have a vehicle, but that one is also basically end of life. So we'd like to get that back to them, and they want it back right away. So the recommendation from staff here is that we budget in the electric utility reserves 600,000 for a new digger derrick. As I say, it's absolutely critical for our operations. We need it. And we did reach out to some vendors. There are a couple in stock that we found in Alberta. Usually this would be a year and a half, 18 months sort of timeline to receive, which would be a huge problem for us. But there are a couple available on the market right now, and we'd have to review their specifications. We'd do a public procurement and ask them to look at that. And so we do need to move forward on a purchase of a new vehicle. And so that's what this council report is about. And here for any questions.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Barkwell.
So what use or value, or use and value, does the old truck have now? I mean, if it's just the lifting or component that's worn out or cracked and fatigued, there's a lot of truck there, even though it is 30 years old.
Thank you, Councillor. Through the mayor, we'd use our procurement policy to dispose of that. And so not sure where the funds would go once we dispose of it. Hopefully to the electric utility reserve. So I'm getting a no from the CFO over there. So yeah, it does have a salvage value. You know, I don't know what that is currently, but we'd follow our procurement practice to dispose of that.
Well, and would it just go straight into the equipment reserve so that we, have a net expenditure of some kind, and hopefully, I don't know what we could get for a truck like that. Nobody does, right? Yeah.
Councillor Betts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question, I'm not sure if this would be for Dave or for Jeremy, Director of Services. I'm just wondering with, obviously this piece of equipment seems very important to what you do. I understand that. Are there any opportunities for looking at taking something off the 2026 capital expenditure for the electrical utility to operate in place of this reserve expenditure?
Thank you, Councillor. Through the mayor, I don't have access, Dave, to the network for whatever reason right now, so I can't pull up the capital program. But the big ticket item in the electric utility 5-year capital plan is voltage conversion. So it's replacing poles, underground equipment, wire. So basically maintenance. And we do need this truck to do that work. So this could be considered part of that capital project, and it is coming from the same utility reserve.
Councillor Peak?
Thank you. Dave, could I ask what is the health of our reserves? You're saying that we can absorb this cost?
So through the mayor to Councillor Peak. Based on our current 5-year financial plan, at the end of 2025, should we spend all the money that's been allocated, we would have 2.8 million left in reserves. In our electric utility reserve, sorry.
Okay, somebody want to bring the motion forward? Councillor Barkwell, Councillor Peak, second. Any further discussion? Call the question, all in favor? And none opposed, that carries. We'll take a 9-minute break, back at 2:50.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's get started again. Municipal Regional District Tax Application 9.7, CAO, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I'll speak to this. So our application has been filled out and written consent has been provided from 4 out of 5 formal accommodation providers, which does meet the requirements of the program criteria from the province. An open house was also held to make a presentation and hear comments and to profile key elements of our vision, mission, and objectives. Good discussion was had with those in attendance. Destination BC has been engaged throughout the process, and several rounds of their feedback have been incorporated into the documents in the package. A bylaw is also now prepared, which we would request first 3 readings on today with adoption next meeting, after which time the application can be formally submitted. Given the province can take up to 9 months to complete their end of the process, it is recommended that council use the upcoming UBCM meeting to lobby the province to expedite the application. Given that we have necessary consent and we are one of the only communities not presently charging this tax in the entire valley, it should be a routine review. Nevertheless, unless and until we hear from the province on the approval of our application, we recommend budgeting for a few months of bridge funding for Destination Summerland in case there's a delay. Destination BC has indicated they believe we may still be able to hear about approval in just the next few months, with the possibility still of implementation for January 1, based on their experience in shepherding these throughout the system elsewhere. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions if there are any.
Okay, thank you. Council, Councillor Peak.
Motion.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. If I might ask the CAO, the discussions you had with the tourism community, have they felt confidence in the plans we have going forward for how we will review and what we are doing with those funds?
Yes, good confidence, I would say there, and a better understanding through the course of the discussion, for sure.
If I might say, I'm really pleased. I don't know how many years, when I first came here, I wanted this to get done, because we should be able to have that money to make use for our marketing and tourism opportunities.
Okay, thank you. Yes, it is one of our strategic priorities, so it's good to see another one checked off the list. Councillor Peak, bringing it forward.
Yes, I'd like to.
Okay, second, Councillor Patton, second. Any further discussion? Call the question, all in favor? And none opposed, carries. And thank you to CAO for doing all that work for it. I know it's quite a hefty application process. 9.8, License of Occupation, Summerland Minor Baseball Association. And this is our manager of procurement.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. The Summerland Minor Baseball Association, as you're aware, has approached the district with the request to complete improvements at Living Memorial Park in memory of Hendricks John Taylor and in support of a grant application to the Jays Care Foundation. The staff has proposed entering into a license of occupation agreement to provide the Summerland Minor Baseball Association with the authority to complete the improvements on district-owned land and to provide terms and conditions for their use of the space. So staff are proposing a license with an initial term of 1 year and the opportunity to extend for 1 additional year should the improvements not be completed in the first year at a nominal fee of $1 per year. The license requires that the SMBA would receive approval from the district before any improvements or installations could be initiated, provide twice monthly progress updates to the district, and provide the district with project records. The district would also have authority to inspect the work and stop the work as required. The license stipulates that the SMBA must receive a minimum of 3 quotes for any work that's financed by a grant from the district, but the SMBA may submit a written request to waive the requirement where multiple quotes aren't feasible.
It also stipulates a warranty period of at least 1 year on any improvements. And unless otherwise noted or agreed, all improvements made to or installed on the license area would become the property of the district. The license requires that the SMBA provide commercial general liability insurance in the amount of no less than $5 million, naming the District of Summerland as an additional insured, and requires that their contractors do the same, as well as provide automobile liability insurance. And it also requires that they collect proof of professional liability insurance from any consultants, such as engineers or architects that are providing professional services in amounts of no less than $2 million. And further requires that if they hire a contractor to complete a contract valued at $200,000 or greater, they would also receive a performance bond and a labor and materials bond to protect us for the work. As the license of occupation doesn't grant exclusive use of the property or any interest in the property, public notice isn't required under the community charter. In terms of financial implications, we would be collecting a nominal fee of $1 per year. We're also benefiting by receiving the improvements that are funded from the Jays Care Foundation grant and the Summerland Minor Baseball Association's fundraising efforts. Staff note that a condition of the foundation grant is that staff and the SMBA agree on a maintenance plan for the park, which may require some increases to district maintenance while offering the opportunity for the SMBA to take on responsibility for other tasks. However, the district anticipates that any impacts would be minimal. And although staff time will be required to maintain the relationship between the district and the SMBA and to oversee the improvements, there are no direct costs related to the district with respect to the license of occupation specifically. As council has already authorized the $185,000 grant towards the improvements separately. With that, I'm available to take any questions.
Okay, thank you. Council, any questions? Councillor Patton?
Thank you, Worship. Thank you for the report. So tell me, how does, and this might be to Dave, I'm not sure, but when our contribution is $185,000 and it's 1 year with a 1 year extension, how is our portion of the money, do we know if our portion of the money is going to be used the first year or the second year if it had to be extended? Like, what are the provisions going to be in place for protection of our $185,000 that we are putting towards this project?
Through the mayor, I'll pass that to our Director of Finance.
Well then, through the conversations that we've had with Summerland Minor Baseball Association, they provided us with a very detailed budget in terms of the overall scope of this project. And there were specific components, as council might recall. I think we're giving $100,000 in terms of through the electrical utility for some of the lighting, and then $85,000 for some of the other things. So we, in our conversations with them, they will be providing us with monthly kind of financial updates in terms of where the money's been spent, all those types of things. Because at the end of the day, as a municipality, we are taking over all of those assets. So we have to record them in our financial statements. So that's a big component of the data that we're going to need from them. So based on those reports that they're going to be providing to us, we'll have some fairly good assurance where the money's being spent.
Okay, thanks, Dave. That puts mind at ease knowing that there are some very stringent controls in place for that. It is a large sum of money. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Van Alphen?
Maybe through our Director of Finance, like there was conversation, Jeremy's not here, but have you heard anything from IBEW? Are they willing to kick in? Oh, come on.
Wait and see, I guess. Okay, Councillor Betts?
I'm happy to bring forward the staff recommendation as presented.
Okay, seconder, please. Councillor Van Alphen, any further discussion? Call the question, all in favor? And none opposed, that carries. 9.9, letter of occupation for the Lower Choppers Disc Golf Course. Dana, Just roll with the next few.
So the Penticton Disc Golf Club approached the district with the request to develop a disc golf course at Lower Trappers off Highway 40. The PDGC has developed a proposal with an 18-hole course being developed as phase 1 and an additional 18 holes as phase 2. The proposed license is for the first 18-hole course only. However, we anticipate that the PDGC will be coming forward in the future with a request to expand with an additional 18 holes. As the additional 18 holes would require a material amendment to the license, including an expansion of the license area, staff would be bringing that request to council for approval. However, staff note that the zoning is already in place to allow for up to 36 holes. The proposed license of occupation agreement provides PDGC with the authority to complete the improvements on district-owned land, and provides terms and conditions for PDGC to use the space. A few highlights include that it would be a 3-year term with the opportunity to extend for a further 3 years. The Disc Golf Club would be solely responsible for the purchase, installation, and ongoing maintenance of disc golf course equipment, amenities, site improvements, and that includes parking and signage. The PDGC is solely responsible for the management, membership, and general rules and regulations of the disc golf course use and code of conduct, and must ensure shared recreational use of the property and not restrict the use of any multi-use trails on the property. As with the previous license of occupation, they must receive approval from the district before any improvements or installations begin. And the district would have authority to inspect the work and stop work as required. Again, as with the last license, they also are required to receive warranties of at least 1 year on any improvements. At the end of the license term, the district would have the option of assuming ownership of all improvements or requiring the disc golf club to remove them, or of course, entering into another license of occupation. And the insurance and bonding requirements for the disc golf club are the same as with the Summerland Minor Baseball Association license of occupation. And again, as this license of occupation doesn't grant exclusive use of the property or grant any interest in the property, public notice isn't required under the community charter. In terms of financial implications, should the district authorize the license, we would be collecting a nominal fee of $1 per year from the Penticton Disc Golf Club. The district doesn't anticipate any additional expenses as a result of the license, aside from staff time to manage the relationship and check in on the improvements. The Penticton Disc Golf Club has also been informed that any requests for financial or in-kind support from the district are to go through the grant and aid process. And although this is a non-exclusive license of occupation, we wanted to flag that it's possible that BC assessment will deem the disc golf club's occupation of the lands to be taxable. However, BC assessment has provided a preliminary opinion that the license isn't indicative of an assessable occupancy, but that a more thorough review would be required to be certain. If the occupation is found to be accessible, the disc golf club has indicated that they would intend to apply for a permissive tax exemption, and staff would recommend granting a 100% permissive tax exemption due to the non-exclusivity of the license of occupation. With that, I'll take any questions.
Thank you. Also, questions? Councillor Betts.
Thank you. Just a quick question. In terms of the Penticton Disc Golf Club, and that they are responsible for building and or doing any improvements and amenities. So will they, it seems like they would be responsible for then putting in, if they were talking about any outhouses, that has come up a couple of times. So they would put them in as they see fit, for example, as compared to the district?
So staff have directly discussed the potential of outhouses with the Penticton Disc Golf Club, and they've indicated that at this time, their intent is to only bring in portable outhouses for things like tournaments, but not for regular, like routine daily use. However, it is a term in the agreement that there's the potential for them to install a portable toilet at a future date.
Anyone else? Councillor Peak.
Thank you very kindly, Your Worship. I'm very pleased that this is coming forward, the opportunity for our community and the tourism opportunity, and to have people involved in outside activities is really, really good. So I'm pleased that you were able to work through this on our behalf. I did have a question. Do you, in your staff position, monitor all licenses of occupation when they turn up to be renewed or do all those things?
Through the mayor, yes, it's technically the responsibility of the corporate officer, but it's something that I have been kind of managing on behalf of the corporate officer or in conjunction with the corporate officer.
Thank you for that clarification, Dana. I certainly appreciate it. I would bring this forward if there's an opportunity to do that.
Okay, do I have a seconder? Councillor Van Alphen. Any further discussion? All in favor? And none opposed, that carries. License of occupation QP.
Thank you, Your Worship. So QP 1136 is the union that represents the majority of District of Summerland employees. They approached the district staff. They were interested in renting office space at Municipal Hall for an initial term of 6 months, with the option to extend the term for an additional 12 months. Recent office moves at Municipal Hall have made some office space available in the basement level. Staff propose entering into a license of occupation with QP at fair market rates. To outline the items related to the license, including the term, license fee, area of use, etc. Due to the short term of the arrangement, QP has requested a gross rental fee, so all inclusive, where all utilities, internet connectivity, property taxes, etc., are included as part of the fee. The office space is currently furnished and no material improvements are required. The office space does not have a separate exterior entrance or its own washrooms, so the licensee would have to enter through district office space and use the shared washroom facilities on the basement level. QP would be providing the district with proof of commercial general liability insurance in amount of not less than $5 million, with the District of Summerland named as an additional insured, with the tenant's legal liability insurance supplement of not less than $2 million, as well as property insurance for their own property. As this license of occupation does grant exclusive use of their office area, it is considered a disposal of property and therefore will require public notification in accordance with the community charter. In terms of financial implications, this license would bring an additional $3,600 in gross revenue to the district in the initial term, with another potential $7,200 in gross revenue for the renewal term. Additional expenses would be minimal and could include increased utility usage, the cost of additional fobs, as well as potentially property taxes if BC assessment considers QP's occupation to be taxable. For this license of occupation with QP, we have proposed that the property taxes will be payable by the district. QP is a nonprofit organization and they have indicated that they have a firm budget of $600 a month, all inclusive. And their proposed license area is also smaller than the proposed license area that's the subject of agenda item 9.11. Janitorial services are already provided in the basement level, so there wouldn't be any increase to the district related to janitorial costs. And market research has indicated that market rates for small office spaces begin at about $500 a month in this area and go up from there. And as this license fee includes the cost of utilities, internet, et cetera, staff believe that $600 a month is well supported as a fair market rate. With that, I'm open to any questions.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Betts.
Thank you for the presentation. I can see that it makes sense for it to be an all-encompassing place, just in the way that it's set up. My question actually is, how will they navigate Municipal Hall being closed 1 day a week?
Through the mayor, all QB members are also District of Summerland staff, so they already have fobs and the ability to access the facility when it's closed.
Anyone else? I'd like to bring a motion forward. Counselor Betts, second. Counselor Peak. Any discussion? All in favor? None opposed, that carries. And next, urban systems.
Thank you, Mayor. Urban Systems, consulting company and engineering firm, has contacted District of Summerland staff as well to inquire about renting office space at Municipal Hall. These recent office moves have also made an additional office space available at the basement level that would be suitable for their use. As they are a for-profit company, the district is required to charge fair market value in accordance with our obligations under the community charter. And this will bring additional revenue to the district during the lease term. Urban Systems has, like QP, requested an initial term of 6 months with the option to extend for an additional 12 months. Due to the short term of the arrangement, Urban Systems has requested a gross rental fee as well, with all utilities, internet connectivity, taxes, and other fees included as part of the fee. However, for this license, we do propose that property taxes, if applicable, would be additional. The office space is currently furnished and no material improvements are required. As with the QP license, it doesn't have a separate exterior entrance or washroom, so the licensee would have to enter through district office space and use shared washroom facilities on the basement level. And they will provide us with the same insurance requirements as QP, so $5 million in commercial general liability insurance with tenants' legal liability, with a sublimit of $2 million and all risks property insurance for their own property. As this license does grant exclusive use of the property, it is considered a disposal of property and therefore requires public notification under the community charter. The financial implications, as with QP, it would bring in an additional $3,600 in revenue in 2025 and potentially $7,200 in 2026, as well as potentially some property tax revenue if BC assessment deems their occupation to be taxable. Additional expenses would be minimal and would include utility usage as well as additional fobs, which would provide them with access on Mondays when Municipal Hall is closed to the public, as well as potentially after hours or on the weekends. Janitorial services are already provided in the basement level, so no increases to those costs. And staff have done some market research and believe that the $600 a month rate plus property taxes would be a well-supported fair market rate for their license area. With that, I'm open to any questions.
Thank you, Councillor Park.
So I was looking at the area that the Urban Systems is interested in compared to the area that the QP has, and it's like 50% bigger, but they're getting for the same price. Shouldn't they charge at least, shouldn't they pay a little bit more anyway? If maybe not a full 50% more, but that's almost, yeah, maybe it should be $900, not $600.
For the mayor, we do believe that the additional property tax revenue will help balance that out. As well, there is kind of just a base fee to have access to a building area, and this, there's a diminishing return on the square footage. So I wouldn't expect that it would be, 50% higher just because it's 50% more square footage. I'm not sure what the additional property tax revenue might be, and our director of finance is unable to confirm as well. But both organizations have indicated that the fee is suitable for their budget and their needs.
Councillor Betts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think that, again, like the gross rental lease is a useful way to look at this kind of rental when you're just in the basement and everything is all included. You have common bathrooms with other users in the building, public bathrooms. Is there any consideration, other than the fact that they can be issued fobs, is there any access or full access into all parts of Municipal Hall for employees who aren't District of Summerland employees?
Through the mayor to Councillor Betts. Our fobs, we can actually program our fobs to only allow you access to certain areas of the building. So in this instance, you know, they'd probably have access to the main front door. We wouldn't, of course, give them access into our municipal hall. They could go down the stairs, access it from there. But we would definitely limit their access to only the areas that they would require.
Great, thank you.
Councillor Peak?
Thank you, Worship. I agree with the gross charge as well. I'm wondering, is there any conflict of interest? Because this is a company who also bids on consultation services with us for them to be leasing an area within the town hall.
Great question through the mayor. That is something that staff discussed. Currently, Urban Systems has a as and when engineering services agreement with us that's valid until the end of March 2026. So the term of this license actually aligns quite well with that. So we can renew it if they're successful in securing another term. But at this point, we are able to directly award work to them pursuant to this competitive procurement we did to hire them as and when engineer. As well, the office would be used by staff that are working on some District of Summerland projects. So site inspectors for the Wharton Street construction project that's happening now, as well as the Victoria Road upgrades project that we're procuring right now. The site inspector and engineer contract administrator are the individuals who will be using that office perhaps exclusively, but certainly the most on behalf of Urban Systems. And yeah, I'm not sure how involved one of them may be in submitting a proposal, but they would be in a separate office area from district staff. And as our director of finance noted, they wouldn't have access to any staff exclusive staff facilities. So it wouldn't be different than other consultants that we work with in that regard.
I may, Your Worship. I think the opportunity to rent to create more revenue to offset some of our cost is important, and therefore I also think that's another aspect.
Yeah, and I think, it's because they are on our retainer or as and when needed contract. I think we get benefit out of it as well, just having them nearby for when we need them. I mean, it's no secret our development services department works closely with them, and rather than them having to come down from Kelowna all the time, so could be useful. Councillor Barkwell?
I think that question came up before, and we were told that in other municipalities, there can be contractors and such situated in the same building. Heck, if it was a big community, they could easily be very close. So I don't see an issue. I have a bigger issue with the fact that they get more space for the same price, but considering that it's not a very material amount and we just want to get the ball rolling here, we'll wait until the next time we lease out this space to think about the prices again.
Councillor Betts?
I'm happy to bring forward the staff recommendation.
Thank you. Seconder? Councillor Van Elfen? Any further discussion? Call the question. All in favor? And none opposed? That carries. No bylaws for adoption. Items removed from consent agenda. Letter A, that would be the I think Councillor Peak wanted this from the RDOS. The traffic control at incident scenes. Oh, no. Oh, you both did. Okay. So whoever wants to pull that out, speak to that, go ahead.
Sure, I'll speak to that. This one was looking at council for a letter of support to send to the province regarding improving responsive road contractors for traffic control at incident scenes. And you know, we obviously work closely with the RDOS. I feel like if they've identified this as a problem, especially as a problem for our first responders who have a limited amount of time that they are supposed to be on scene before other people are supposed to come in and take control of the traffic scene, and that's not really happening in appropriate time, then I'm happy to have a letter from our council that would support that recommendation as they're trying to get a meeting with the Ministry of Transportation and Transit. If anybody else feels the same way, I think they were looking for our support in that regard.
Okay, so you want to bring forward a motion that we provide a letter to the RDOS in support?
Sounds like a good motion.
Okay, second, Councillor Peak. Any discussion? Call the question, all in favor? That's approved. None opposed. Letter number B. That's ORL, Councillor Trainer.
Yeah, we heard from the CAO of the library, Okanagan Library this morning or earlier today, and our librarian. And yeah, the board is just looking for district support. They want to go to UBCM and raise a couple of really important issues with the provincial government, and they're just looking for all the member municipalities to send along a letter of support. So I believe they sent a template. So it'd be pretty straightforward to send this off.
Okay, so you want to bring
Yeah, I'll bring forward a motion to support their ask.
I'll second it. I also have a comment.
Okay, Councillor Peak.
Thank you, Worship. This was also came up at Silga, and the fact that their funding has been frozen for such a length of time really gives an opportunity for them to make some movement if they get to UBCM. So I'm well in support of this.
Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? None opposed. That carries. Letter D from the Legion, Councillor Peak.
Yes, I just wanted people to be aware that they were in favor of the baseball, the changes at the baseball diamond. They were in support. I've got it right in front of my face, Mr.
Yeah.
Field 96, thank you. Not in my lexicon yet.
And that was one of our concerns for sure. That's good. Thank you. And then I wanted to bring forward the procurement report. I just had a question for our Director of Finance, or our Manager of Procurement, whoever. The landfill attendance services, that the new contract, could you tell us how that compares to the previous contract?
To answer the mayor's question, the old contract, so in our current budget, we budgeted $366,600. So at $296,000, we are seeing a savings of about $70,300 in our first year.
Okay, so that's good news. Councillor Barkwell?
So related to landfill management and not the contractor's problem, I don't think. I think it's going to be something that the district needs to deal with, is that too often I've gone up there to dispose of my oil, and they have a 22-liter limit, or 20-liter limit, and they're going, oh, I don't know if we got room. And it's not their problem. It's because the contractor or the service that comes to pick up the oil doesn't come often enough, or else we need a second tank. But we pay a disposal fee when we buy oil. And for that money, we should at least be able to not have to turn around at the landfill because they can't take our oil. So I'd like staff to see what they can do about ensuring they have the capacity, that there's more frequent pickups or whatever that we're paying for with our disposal fees.
Through the mayor, it's something that we are looking into, and we can double that limit. The one issue that we do have is getting it picked up. So if we double it and we hit capacity, we just won't be able to accept oil at that time. But it is something we can do, and we are looking to see if we can get additional storage to go up there. It's just the pickup times are sporadic.
Yeah, so that's the issue. I mean, I guess if they can take away 2 tanks worth at a time, then an extra tank, and I don't know who pays for that. It should come out of the fee we pay on every liter of oil. But, you know, a farmer has got a couple of trucks, 15 liters of vehicle. You're not going to run up there with 15 liters. You're going to wait until you got a couple of 5-gallon pails. And then to be turned around because your tank is full, that's just no good. And so whatever pressure we can put on these guys at the Recycle BC, I don't know what other communities, whether they get better service than us, but it's just not good enough right now.
Okay, I think he's got the point. Good digression. Councillor Van Alphen?
My apologies, Mr. Mayor. Is there any assurances that the people that are working up there today in our scale shacks that do such a good job are still employed?
Through the mayor, there's a good chance. We have had discussions with the existing company and the next company, and it sounds like they're open to potentially the employees switching over, but that's strictly between them. But yes, we have had good service of late.
Okay, thank you. CEO?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a couple of things. First of all, thank you for recognizing and pulling out actually that observation on the savings. I think it's a great example how council's procurement policy is built and designed to find savings through competition. So that's a great example of that and real savings. The second thing is we should probably get an actual motion on the renaming of Field 96 from council. So I know that we were told to find consent, which we do now have in the letter, but I think it'd be good to have a proper motion on the file for that if someone wants to bring one.
Okay, we could. I thought my understanding was the original motion was approval contingent to approval of the, no? Okay.
I think it was seek consent. That was what the original motion, but
Okay.
yeah.
So somebody want to bring that forward? Yeah. Councillor Betts? Second, Councillor Peak. So any discussion on that, the renaming of the field to 96, Field 2 to 96? I'll call the question. All in favor? So none opposed, that carries. And I'll just a motion to receive those 4 items of to receive. Councillor Betts, Councillor Peak, all in favor? That carries. Yeah.
Just a question on the amounts. You have the contract value and total project budget, and the almost 381,000. Is that going to be the full price, and we're going to be 100,000 under the budget that could be used for other things?
Through the mayor, that was for the Comptech Cromwell. Correct.
Good. So if I could have a motion to go into close pursuant to sections 91C, G, and I of the Community Charter. Councillor Peak or Councillor Betts and Councillor Van Alphen, all in favor? That carries. Give people a moment to